Ready? Play.
Oh, why is my mic muted? I don't know.
Well, it's not anymore.
Yeah, it's not anymore. Anyway, yeah, John is saying sorry, I think. Anyway, the last ball has not actually dropped yet. Hurkacz and Varias are still playing 4-2 in the fifth set for the Peruvian now. I think like the way we should go about this probably then is to talk about the women's first, and then hopefully Hurkacz and Varias will already be done, right? I mean, with the fifth set tiebreak, it's surely gonna pan out this way or another.
Yeah, exactly. Like we'll probably be, I think by the time we get around to talk about the men's draw, we will have a result on court 14. The last ball has indeed dropped on Philippe Chatrier though, but we won't talk about that just yet because they never put a women's match on Philippe Chatrier at night. Yes.
And tomorrow also, right? What is it tomorrow? Zverev TFO?
I mean, that one I understand a little bit more because they're like kind of like the two biggest men's names left in that half of the draw. But I still think Świątek Wong should probably have gone there. Świątek should get at least one night match as the defending women's champion. But in terms
of like, want it, right? She
probably doesn't want it though. Yeah. But in terms of if you have to pick a men's match, then Zverev Tiafoe is the one that is the best choice to go on that last match.
I would have to like check what the men's matches are tomorrow, and like a men's, like women's too, right? I guess.
Yeah,
but yeah,
if you have a men's match, out
of the men's, I would go for that or Cerundolo Fritz. That's really good too.
Yeah, that's the other option.
Fritz just played like not a night match on Chatrier, but just played a night match. I don't know if that is really something they consider at all. I have no clue. And like out of the women's, 100% Andreeva Gauff would be my pick. Someone suggested to me in a comment actually that there was a rule that forbid that like used to at least forbid the organizations. I think they mentioned WTA, but again, this is just something that someone said in the comments. I couldn't find any proof of this. He didn't give any proof, so I'm not even sure if it's right. But that there used to be a rule that basically didn't allow the organizations in tennis to put young players. I'm not sure how young because again there was no details after a certain hour.
Makes sense.
I don't know if that plays into it, but like Andreeva Gauff is a very natural night match for me. If they want to like avoid backlash, and that's what they did in 2021 and 2022, right? They just put one women's match just to like at least have some sort of degree of fairness, let's say. And they did, I think, Świątek Kostiuk in 2021, and in 2022 Ostapenko Cornet. That this one I'm sure about. Yeah. And I think that Andreeva Gauff was really like the perfect moment to do it.
Yeah, I think that's obviously the one that everyone will be is kind of talking about from that half of the draw, really. That would probably get the attention anyway. But if there is a rule in place around late night matches, and you can't find it, so we don't know its accuracy. But it's an idea that I think is plausible to me, especially given the other protections young players have on the WTA tour, particularly. So it wouldn't massively surprise me if that was the thing.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess we should get over to the women's side, right?
Let's talk about the women. Yeah,
this is actually the last ball that we're doing after third round because it's the first day of the third round. So basically, we have just 8 matches on this side and 8 matches on this side to talk about. But I don't think that will be an issue. We should be able to extend this easily, and of course, hoping that more of you guys will also put something in the chat as usual. We appreciate every single comment, and
it's very difficult to get either of us to shut up.
Yes, that's true. So we'll try our best to actually, have it at a reasonable time and maybe not talk for 10 minutes about one thing, but we will do that anyway. So yeah, let's just get right into it.
All right. So I guess there's there were a few intriguing 3-setters that happened, but I guess the biggest news from the day was actually the opening match on Philippe Chatrier with Elise Mertens beating Jessica Pegula, which on paper isn't a shock but I thought Pegula might have a little bit more in there. I mean, Mertens is a dangerous player, provided she doesn't get overpowered. She is a Grand Slam semi-finalist. Obviously, very, very consistent when it comes to the first week of a slam. And the way she played today was, she was playing absolutely the best she could and really frustrating Pegula for most of that match. I think this has to go down as one of the best matches that Elise Mertens has ever played. Certainly of the ones that I've seen of her, and I admit I haven't seen that many of her matches, but I was impressed by the level she produced and the way she kind of controlled proceedings. Good result for her. Opens up that section of the draw to the point where now actually Mertens, at being the 28th seed, is the only seeded player left in that quarter.
Yeah, I mean, there's a virtual seeding, I think, next to Muchova's name, and it's like a top 16 seeding, but it's a virtual seeding. It's only in my head, and it's in the head of many tennis fans, but it's not on paper, of course. But yeah, absolutely. I think Pegula, I read something about having food poisoning, and just like maybe that explains how she was just a bit slow. She never really got herself going. We've talked about it, but like on slow clay, she's not that strong in general. Of course, she had a very big run at the French last year. Was it quarters? I think it was quarters, right?
Yeah.
But like you would probably like her chances more in like Madrid, where of course she was the runner-up in 2022, and this year she made the quarters. I never really figured her as a huge contender here. Probably someone who will at some point simply run into an informed player or a top seed, and other top seed than her, but because of course she is one of the top seeds, and lose to her. Just the fact that it was so easy or so straightforward for Mertens is certainly eye-catching. And as you said, that section just looks so open right now. Before the event, most of us were probably looking at there were a lot of people just thinking of Muchova as a dark horse contender for the quarters. And right now, she kind of looks like the favorite to make the semis. So this is also amazing development for her, really. Well, I don't know if Pegula out really changes that much for Muchova. She would still be the favorite, I think, over Pegula if they met. But it does open things up a little bit for sure.
Yeah, it's definitely officially open now. I mean,
yeah.
Although Muchova, I agree with you, Muchova is the favorite, and sort of spoilers, she also won. She won. She was like the last women's match of the day. She played the fourth match on Simone Mathieu. She easily beat Aryna Kamilla Begu. We don't need to talk to her. I didn't see the match. I don't think it's worth commenting that much. She seemed to be the better player for all of it. She is definitely the favorite, although I think of the four players in that section left to get to the semi-final, there's only one that I don't see that would be a surprise if you saw their name in a semi-final. The other three, not so much.
I would get behind that. I think Mertens would still be a bigger surprise than like Pavlyuchenkova. Just the upside is just higher. But yeah, at this point, you cannot exclude the fact that Mertens can beat Pavlyuchenkova and Muchova, or Pavlyuchenkova and Avanesian for that matter, right? But what was I going to say? About Muchova Begu. She was actually 0-2 down in the head-to-head against the Romanians. So plenty of people were thinking that maybe this is going to be a pretty tough matchup. Of course, Begu is like an expert clay courter, always pretty tough to play. And against her, and I just thought that Muchova just today played an excellent match, and maybe you shouldn't be surprised with it, but it was really important just for I think just in order to see that second set against Podoroska was not a sign of any physical issue or something, because if Muchova is dropping the second set 6 games to love and she won the first 6-3, you're already thinking, is she injured? Is this some sort of issue flaring up? Is this something that we're going to have to look at? And she was barely winning points in that second set against Podoroska. So I still don't quite get what happened there. But the fact that just 2 days later she was able to play like a spot-on match against Begu is certainly a great sign for her. And yeah, she now becomes the main favorite to make the semis. But I totally agree that Pavlyuchenkova or Mertens getting there certainly would not be any shocking, and it could certainly happen.
Yeah. And friend of the show, Anastasia Pavlyuchenkova, is on the screen right now. And she actually had a good match day against Anastasia Potapova, who I predicted in my draw bracket when I filled it out that these two were going to meet in round 3.
Ooh.
But I had the opposite result. I thought Potapova would overcome Pavlyuchenkova. I wasn't sure what kind of form Pavlyuchenkova was in. And I thought Potapova showed some promise, but she went a set up. And then what happened? Well, I did have the match on when I was working. And what seemed to happen was Potapova just Pavlyuchenkova just sort of, it was a really close battle. There was some really good rallies, really big hitting from both. You expect that from maybe Russian players. But Potapova just lost focus. She began to struggle with how much Pavlyuchenkova was pushing her consistently. And in the day, the experience of Pavlyuchenkova showed by the fact she broke and pulled away in that match. Potapova she was clearly frustrated that she wasn't able to consolidate the advantage. So there's a little bit of maybe an attitude problem there, but very good win from Pavlyuchenkova. It's great to see her kind of back in the mix in terms of going deep into majors. Obviously, Roland Garros finals in 2021. I thought that's an interesting result, and I'm finding it difficult to call how that match with Mertens is going to go. I kind of have a head versus gut opinion on that one, but okay. I don't know what your thoughts are. But yeah, Pavlyuchenkova, very good result for her. Was actually quite an entertaining match.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to Pavlyuchenkova Mertens, I always sort of tend to drift more towards players with the higher ceiling. Then again, of course, Mertens is like the icon of consistency, right? The epitome of consistency. So I'm certainly not sure that Pavlyuchenkova is going to get through. I think she probably has a slightly better chance to do it. As you mentioned, the final 2 years ago, and she actually hasn't played. She didn't play Roland Garros in 2022, so that she's basically coming back after that final, and yeah, she just looks really supreme. I did not expect maybe just that. She was already quite definitely speeding up in the past couple of weeks. There was that match in Rome when she thrashed Aryna, and everyone thought that maybe she actually will do some damage to Świątek. Given the quick transition from Madrid to Rome, she ended up losing that in a double bagel, but was much better in Strasbourg. And the French has been really perfect for her. Of course, that match against Samsonova really could have gone either way, but today a great display against someone who probably will be like one of the next top 10 debutants on the WTA tour. So just amazing. And I guess the further she goes, the story will really be great here, of her basically reaching that French Open final, then not really following it up, of course, mostly due to injuries, and now just coming back a couple of months ago and already getting a result like this.
Yeah, absolutely. By the way, breaking news on Talking Tennis, Hubert Hurkacz has lost 6-2 in the decider to Varillas, who, having played 3 consecutive 5-set matches, will play Novak Djokovic in round 4. If that's not a poison chalice, I don't know what is. So anyway, but back to the women's draw. And you know what? There's a lot of very similar stories with sort of veterans who've lost a little bit of form, doing well in this tournament. The two I'm thinking of, Elina Svitolina and Sloane Stephens, both coming through in 3 sets today. Very kind of different matches. I didn't see the Stephens match. She dropped the second set, but she came through the score in the set that she won against Putintseva. She seemed very much to be able to take control of the match. Svitolina Blinkova was a real battle. And Svitolina served for the match at 5-4 in the decider, got broken, served for the match again at 6-5, saved break points, eventually converted her 3rd match point. It was a real battle, and there was a lot of emotion on court as she won it. But with that result for Svitolina, obviously, in about a month or 2 of coming back from maternity leave, getting to the 4th round of a major. Okay, it's a major that she quite likes, is quite comfortable at. She's reached the quarterfinal here 3 times, I think. She's definitely. It's nice to see sort of her back in the groove. I was a little bit worried what might happen, that was it was a clutch match to watch. I didn't see the Stevens match, but I would say there seems to be a theme here with Pavlyuchenkova and those two of these veterans coming back to the fore.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Stevens-Putintseva is just such a fascinating rivalry, it seems, right? I mean, over the years, they have played 6 times by now, and every single time it ended in a deciding set. So she that rivalry is sort of like...
Is that Stevens-Svitolina, did you say?
Stevens-Putintseva.
Oh yeah, Putintseva. Sorry, I misheard.
I guess that was always really the case with Stevens playing some other counterpunchers, right? Then it becomes just a war and a complete dogfight. And for her to pull through against that, now she gets to play Sabalenka, which of course is really tough. But then at the same time, it's more of a natural matchup for her, right? I mean, she knows exactly what she's going to be doing on the court. It's just a question of whether the opponent isn't too strong at her own game. But certainly to battle through Putintseva is never easy for Stevens, just like it's just never easy for her against these sort of players, because she's also one of them mostly. And Svitolina, as you said, I wonder if she's not going to be running out of steam soon. It certainly feels possible. There was a last ball drop show this week. I don't think it was with you, where we were talking about Svitolina quite a lot. And I remember mentioning that for the French Open, that one when she lost to Halep in the quarters from 6-3, 5-1, that was probably her best chance at a slam, even though she made 2 semifinals. But she was destroyed in both of them. But that French Open was the one where Ostapenko won. And by the time they made the quarters, everyone was looking at Svitolina and Halep as the main favorites. Would it make sense for Svitolina to have a slam? I'm not really sure. Plenty of other players, I don't know, Agnieszka Radwańska, who maybe had very similar issues against top opposition, did not get it. But I think that moment when she led Halep 6-3, 5-1, and then eventually would have to play Ostapenko and whoever in the semifinals, I cannot remember, but I definitely remember that she was the main favorite there. If she beat Halep, Pliskova was the semifinalist. So on clay she probably would have been the favorite as well. Baczynski was of course the other player who lost in the final 4, but to Ostapenko. And I'm not sure she can really repeat this here, but of course this is already so huge after coming back from the pregnancy. Sometimes when players are out for a year at an advanced stage of their careers, we just sort of assume that they're probably not going to be back to their peak. But after all, Svitolina is just 29 years of age, 28, something like that.
29. Yeah, she's I think
28 actually. And she has every chance of returning to where she was. Maybe I don't know if we're number 3, but to being one of the best players in the world, and I guess she's already proving that. And this is also a funny head-to-head, right? Hers against Kasatkina. She's leading that 6-0. I wonder if after all these years it really matters at all. Probably not, I would say, but they only played on clay once, and Kasatkina took a set. In these 6 matches, Kasatkina only took 2 sets of Svitolina. The last one of them was 2021 US Open.
Yeah, I think now Kasatkina will have a little bit more, a bit more experience, and I think on clay, that matchup's going to be closer. I'm definitely interested to see how that will go. Part of me is Kasatkina winning through today. I mean, she's looking very surprisingly good this French Open. I mean, she did benefit a little bit from Peyton Stearns being quite below par in that match. She only dropped 1 game, and really that first set, Stearns, it was not anywhere near her best. And then the second set, the momentum was so heavily with Kasatkina, who was just feeling so confident that even though Stearns managed to find some good shots, it wasn't enough. So Kasatkina is looking kind of dangerous. So if you're right, Svitolina is running out of gas, then I think Kasatkina might be one of the worst people she could play. At the same time, that matchup if it does heavily favour Svitolina, who is a fellow counter puncher like Kasatkina, probably maybe even better at it. She, I don't know, possibly, but it's if she comes in and she's fighting fit, I could see her running through that one. That I think that one's going to be quite close to call there, really. But I think I'm most excited about that match actually. When I turn on my TV for Sunday's action, I think Svitolina Kasatkina is the one I'm probably most interested in. Maybe also Stevens Sabalenka, just to see whether Stevens can bother Sabalenka on clay. Like any other surface, I would say not, but on clay, maybe.
Yeah, I do see the possibility of this for sure, and I think that for Stevens, as I said earlier, it's like a very natural sort of opponent. She knows exactly what she's gonna want to do against them. It's just that I think Sabalenka is probably too strong. She's just gonna be too good at this. But yeah, that's one of the most interesting ones. And yeah, Kasatkina, Svitolina. I do wonder about the physicality aspect, and I also think that their counter punching are like these are pretty different styles. I guess Kasatkina has a bit more variety, but just right now, especially like how Kasatkina played against Vondroušová, I think she was really able to like dictate with her forehand so freely that if she repeats it, she should be coming through here. And she also has had 3 straight set wins. Compared to Svitolina, who is also coming off the Strasbourg title. I fully understand why, despite that head-to-head, Kasatkina is the odds favorite because that's how it simply should be. Of course, not really taking any, not really taking Svitolina's chances away from her, but that's how it should be right now. And there's also one more match that I think we didn't really mention, and it definitely needs to be talked about. Aryna Avanesian in the 4th round of Roland Garros as a lucky loser, and she beat Klara Tauson, who we were sort of hoping for that Muhova Tauson 4th round, where it would be that match of I would be a top 20 player if healthy, and the other says no, I would be a top 20 player if healthy. And it turns out that we're not gonna get it, and Aryna Avanesian just beat Klara Tauson by basically moonballing her to death. And it was pretty fun to watch, not gonna lie. Like Tauson just had to put so much effort in order to like win any point, even though she has all that easy power, hitting off balls which are just so loopy and so unpleasant for her. It was a nightmare. Of course, there was a moment when you thought that she might get back to it, because at 5-4, Avanesian wasted a match point. She actually gave away a point on that occasion. I think it was a backhand unforced error, but I can't be certain right now. But of course, when she got another chance to clinch it, she actually managed to do it. A pretty big surprise, I would say. And I just looking forward into Muhova Avanesian. I figured that this style is probably not going to be as effective against a player who's more experienced, but also just less one-dimensional than Tauson. I'm not saying Tauson is even like really one-dimensional or something. Just Mukova definitely has more tools in her disposal than Tauson, who kind of did not have an idea as to how to play the Russian today.
Mm-hmm. I would completely agree. I mean, I didn't manage to see the match because the TV package I have in the UK didn't give me the option to view it, even though I wanted to. So it's a very good summary for me and for anyone else who might have missed it. I was a little bit surprised. I don't know. I've never seen Avanesian play, but if you're going to that strategy is going to work against someone who relies on overpowering opponents. It's gonna work against it. But I completely agree. That strategy will not work against Karolina Muchova. She's got way too much variety. She'll just deal with it. And I think Muchova will be heavily favourite in that match. Here's a question I want to ask you then. So obviously we looked at all of the results from the women's draw, this half of the women's draw. Of the other 7 remaining players, because there's a possibility that she could play. She's definitely playing Stevens. She could play at least one of the at least two of the other six. Which is the player that can give Aryna Sabalenka the most problems?
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at Kasatkina just because she's playing so well, but
Okay.
I actually have to check like what their head-to-head is. But I would assume that it's not great for Kasatkina.
Kasatkina won the last time they played.
Yeah, 3-2.
But that wasn't a good day for. It wasn't a good day for Sabalenka that day.
Sabalenka has also won both their matches on clay. Yeah, I don't like the match. I don't like the matchup for Kasatkina, frankly. So I would probably have to say in this case Muchova. Maybe Pavlyuchenkova as well, but like if Pavlyuchenkova was really firing, that's probably something that could be an issue for Sabalenka. But then again, I kind of have this thing in my mind where like if Pavlyuchenkova gets to the semis, will she really have that much left in the tank? You know, given that it's still pretty early in her comeback. It's not 2021 when she was just in better match rhythm practice, not after having missed the whole season before that. So yeah, I would probably have to say Muchova. Stevens, I think she is on the list. I'm not sure I like the matchup for either Svitolina or Kasatkina, so I think that's where I would sort of stop it. Muchova, Pavlyuchenkova, Stevens. But yeah, what's your take on that?
I kind of have to agree with you. On the whole, I think Stevens is a threat. I definitely think Muchova can frustrate her. I'm actually looking now at who are the three players who most recently stopped Sabalenka, because obviously she's never got past the third round before. And the last three times she played Roland Garros, which is the last 3 years, she lost in the third round. And the people she lost to in 2020, she lost to Ons Jabeur. In 2021, she lost to Anastasia Pavlyuchenkova, who obviously reached the final that year. And then in 2022, trying to find how she did in 2022. Sorry?
Kamilla Giorgi.
Kamilla Giorgi.
Like, even if you go back to 2019 as well, it's Anisimova. I don't know if you were going to count really 2018. It was Kiki Bertens. That was quite a long while ago. But I think there is a bit of a pattern there. Of course, Jabeur doesn't really count. But like, yeah, that's why I said that Pavlyuchenkova I think could beat her when she's like absolutely peaking. She has been losing to like other power players.
Someone else who will definitely have power in the game that can match Sabalenka or enough variety to diffuse it, which is where the Jabeur comparison comes in. Someone who's naturally comfortable on the surface. So I agree with you. I think Pavlyuchenkova on that basis, and given that she's beaten her last time they played, would probably be that. In terms of maybe someone who brings that variety, who could diffuse it, then Muchova. It's got that nice balance there, similar to Jabeur. So I agree. Maybe then we don't. And Stevens to a certain extent, actually. So if she gets through the Stevens matchup, which is going to depend on, completely depend on how Stevens is. We know that Stevens seems to have a bit of a ceiling at the minute with the players that she plays against opponents and who she can beat. I'm fully confident that as another Grand Slam champion, she could beat Sabalenka. But I think then her next big threat wouldn't be until the semi-finals, and it would need to be either Muchova or Pavlyuchenkova. If it's Mertens, it's going to be less of a challenge, depending on how Mertens is. But that could be absolutely fascinating. So, yeah, I think that's the story of this half of the draw is Sabalenka. Everything seems to be falling in Sabalenka's way to make the final right now.
Yeah, that's true. I remember saying at the beginning of the event that I'm not really thinking yet of Świątek playing both Rybakina and Sabalenka and how that can be tough for her, because there's like no guarantee that both of these players will make it that far. That's basically in a best of 3 scenario. I'm not confident enough in that happening to just look that far ahead. Yeah. But yeah, right now it's definitely looking pretty great for Sabalenka. Even if we're like regarding your question, about who is the toughest for her, it's still a long shot. As you guys probably have realized, like the past couple of days, I hold Muchova in an extremely high regard. But that doesn't matter. That her chances against Sabalenka look that great to me. I mean, Sabalenka is just purely that good that she will probably beat herself, or she will be beaten by someone like Świątek, or maybe she won't be beaten at all. So, yeah.
I'm still slightly skeptical she's going to win Roland Garros just because the pattern doesn't suggest it from her career. But
the whole year doesn't suggest anything, right? Then, like the whole pattern, the patterns, the whole year wouldn't really suggest. Like she was never, she never had this sort of consistency. She was never this complete. So I don't think the patterns really hold up anymore in 2023 for her.
So I'm more so kind of like zooming out and taking a very general picture. In general, for someone to win a slam, they need to have gotten to at least the fourth round at the same event. They usually would have got to the fourth round of that same event at least once in their career prior to that, unless it's their first or second visit to it. The only exception that I am aware of from like last 10 years or so is Sophia Kenin in Australia. But that's more the pattern I'm seeing, is because of that third round blockage. That's what's making me hold back on
Bianca Andreescu
might win. Andreescu was her US Open debut. So I think
okay.
without that first
you said
appearance,
okay. Like no, someone who didn't have okay. Yeah, I get it.
Yeah, same with Raducanu.
Yeah.
Open.
Definitely. I don't know. I think these stats usually, like, sometimes I don't think you've taken this to an extreme, but there is a guy whom like I sometimes read what he writes about tennis, and I think he just really sort of says constantly that someone is due a good result, is due a bad result, and it's not because, I don't know, they've been playing better than their results suggest, but it's only because of like stats like this. So like defending Grand Slam champions. I read this about Sabalenka this year, that the players who have just won Grand Slams for the first time, they don't go that well in they don't do that well in the next one. So that's why Sabalenka will not win Roland Garros. Like these aren't really arguments to me, right? I mean, stats like this, I'm not really sold on. But especially as I think that the 2023 campaign for Sabalenka is just so much different than whatever she was doing in the past. But in general, like, do I still think that she is the favorite of this half? Yes. Can she win? Can she win the slam? If she's in the final, of course she can win it, right? So
I mean, look,
I can't really exclude her.
Whoever I think like she's in the final, that's going to be her biggest test. Whoever she plays, be that Świątek or Rybakina or whoever, or maybe or Andreeva, or even
I'm kind of joking, but okay,
or even on Jabeur.
Okay. You put her very high in these power rankings, right?
I put her number 4, and so far I'm kind of justified with that. I mean, I'm expecting her and Rybakina to have a quarterfinal, but let's see how things go the next couple of days.
I wouldn't have had her that high, but I totally agree with you that so far it's fully justified, and it's probably me who was wrong rather than you.
Yeah.
I read that quote. Yeah,
I'm here for
25 majors. So it's like Holger Rune basically. And I think I even made that comparison yesterday, because like yesterday I did the last ball drops with John. And I even made that comparison between Rune saying, he wants to win 13, was it, or 14 French Opens, and that Andreeva saying 25 majors, and that in very specific cases with individuals who like have the talent to back this lunacy up, it actually kind of helps them to be so overconfident, I think. But of course, it's a very individual example. Both Andreeva and Rune seem to be able to handle it, at least so far, because of course with Andreeva we haven't really seen how she will handle that pressure.
A lot of this is the arrogance of youth to a certain extent, the natural arrogance that, let's face it, we both remember being 16. We probably thought we could literally beat anyone at anything we wanted. So, okay, I'm talking as a 16-year-old, I was the most full of myself I've ever been in my life. So That's just as, and other people who I've spoken to would probably say that. So maybe in your experience, maybe a little bit different.
Yeah, I don't think I ever
confident
really had this. Like, I think I have a very a very contrasting self-esteem, like where it's really low, but at the same time I am also full of myself and vain, and like I cannot really
What we're saying is
describe it
that
into words.
as
So,
Damien grew up, he became more confident.
um,
Let's not get too
maybe.
deep into this.
Yeah, that's not the topic today.
I just, before we move away for the women's game, I do want to do one more tangent on Mukova, actually. Casey's not convinced Andreeva's going to get to 25. Let's see what happens.
You're not getting good odds on that. Definitely not.
No. Mukova. Here's a question that I've kind of thought about just now, and it's something I've been pondering because I have a very specific answer in mind. If Karolina Mukova ends up winning a slam, first of all, do you think that's likely? Second of all, which one do you think it would be?
Do I think it's likely? It's not likely, but of course we've had some fairly random Grand Slam winners on the women's side in the past 5-6 years or so. I mean, if Andreescu can win a slam, if Raducanu can win a slam, if Ostapenko can win a slam, I could definitely imagine Muhova doing it. And I would agree with Vange there on Wimbledon. That would probably make the most sense, I think, to me, with maybe her using the slice well, the ball striking, shining through more maybe than it even does on clay. She is very versatile, right? She can play anywhere. But like, if I have to give one answer, I would probably agree with Vange there on Wimbledon. And she is like if she remains healthy, she's going to be in that I don't know, fair tier of contenders for every slam. I think maybe fourth, maybe third, depending on how many people you put in there. She is also not the youngest, which perhaps makes the likelihood of this smaller. But yeah, I think she is in there with a chance. We've been saying that for a long while, that on the women's side, basically there are like 30 players every slam who can win it. Right now, it's not really true anymore. We have actually developed like a very strong set of players at the top, but if they fail, if maybe she has to play only one of them, she would be one of these players that I would say are in that group just behind them.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I would also say Wimbledon. Again, her game really suits grass, and she also and don't forget she got to the quarterfinals and her first 2 visits of Wimbledon. So that would imply that she really likes it there. But I do agree, like we do seem to be seeing an elite group breaking away. If you're going to get a shock result at a slam, I would say Wimbledon might be the most likely right now. Given how grass is not particularly well practiced on by either tour. But there we go. Tatiana Maria.
It was just in the semis, right?
Yeah. I mean, might be a little late for her. But
last year we also would have said it would have been really late, right? I mean,
true.
What was it like? What was she like? 33, coming back after pregnancy, and somehow she makes the semis. Of course, it was still quite far from winning, I suppose. Well, she was even 34, it would seem. So
34, yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah, she's kind of nearing the end of her career, but like, late breakthrough of all late breakthroughs. But yeah, I think that if I'm honestly going to say we're too far away from Wimbledon, but I would say even this year Wimbledon, I'm pretty confident it's going to be either Rybakina or Sabalenka winning it right now.
Yeah, that sounds like the most reasonable thing to say. I mean, even last year Rybakina was a very like a trendy. Well, maybe she wasn't that trendy, but before Wimbledon, it was kind of clear that her game suits grass so well. And since then, she has only improved. And yeah, Sabalenka, of course, a former Wimbledon, what was it, semi-finalist, losing to Pliskova, right? Yeah, I definitely can see it for both. Hey, Max.
Don't worry, Max. You're not late. You might be late for the women's section, but
yeah, I think we've just finished the women's, but we can talk about the men's. Yeah.
All right. Well, I started with what my highlight of the women's section was. Do you want to talk about start with your highlight from the men's?
Oh, okay. What was my highlight from the men's today? You want me to say Hubert Hurkacz?
I actually don't.
No, I know. I'm just laughing because just before we started, we were actually just talking with John and mentioning that running inside joke on talking tennis that I hate Polish players, as Hurkacz was in the fifth set. Well, today the highlights. Well, I'm not gonna say this match was amazing, but my personal highlight definitely would be Sebastian Ofner breaking the top 100 and getting to a slam second week. Which probably even if you told me that at the start of the qualifying, I would be a little like what? But when I actually saw the draw, that was a very natural. Well, I don't even know if Dark Horse pick because he didn't have basically like anyone other than Oger Yassim and Korda in that section, I think, when it comes to the seeds.
Yeah.
Both out of form without clay practice. He played Max Cressy in the opening round, who had 0 clay wins coming into this event. In the second round, he was guaranteed another player who had 0 clay wins. Well, by that point, that player would have 1 win getting to the second round, Korda or McDonald. And then I think he had to play Kubler, Diaz Acosta, or Fonini or Felix Auger-Aliassime. So it totally seemed like he should be able to do it. He actually wasn't one of the guys who, because at the end of 2022, I did this list of potential top 100 breakthroughs for 2023. He actually wasn't on my list. So many years he has been around that 150, 140 ranking. He definitely had a bit of points to gain at the beginning of the year because he was out with an injury and only started his 2022 season in April. But the consistency that Ofner has managed to produce this year is something that has never happened to him before. 4 challenger finals since the beginning of the year, 38 match wins, which is more the most that he's done, even comparing to full seasons since 2017. And I think this is just really, really deserved. A lot of the time, we just say after the draw is made, that's a player, especially a player who maybe isn't ranked as high. So in this case, a qualifier, that a player has an excellent draw, and then they don't take it. So seeing him actually realize that opportunity and just keep playing whatever he was doing most of the year, and just produce these sort of results in just 5 months was definitely a highlight of the day for me. And also Djokovic, Davidovic, Fokina, at least the first 2 sets. That was my other highlight, I guess.
Yeah, I think with Ofner, I look. Let's face it. I think we should pay much. Look, you'll agree with this. Pay much more attention to challenger form because challenger form usually translates to something big on the ATP side. Look at what happened with Karatsev. Look at what happened with Botic van der Zandschulp. And you see it happen consistently. So it's no surprise to me that Ofner's in the second week. I have somehow been a genius and an idiot at the same time with my predictions because I predicted Ofner getting to the third round. However, I put him in the third round against Diaz Acosta, yeah, Diaz Acosta. And then I went, well, who's going to win that one? And I went with Diaz Acosta because I went with South American on clay.
They played in the final qualifying round. I don't know if you're aware of that.
I didn't realize that was who they. But then I went with. Well, actually, if you then do the Struff Karatsev rule from Madrid, the result's going to get reversed.
I can get it. I mean, in the qualifying, Diaz Acosta was actually the bookies' favorite against Ofner. That was mostly as he was coming there on a 12-match win streak to that match. Ofner played an excellent, just had an excellent showing in that final quality round. So I'm actually not sure if they played again, that the result would be the same, because Ofner just really had a fantastic day at the office. I think in the final qualities round, he was not as clean in the second, for example, struggling with Jan Choinski. So it's not like he was constantly playing that well in this event. But yeah, with Botic van der Zandschulp, who you mentioned, he wasn't even getting that many huge challenger results. Actually, he was making quarters, semis in challengers on clay in the summer, and then he suddenly goes to New York and does this. I mean, he to this day he still has just 1 challenger title, which is pretty crazy. But of course, Karatsev, Ofner, that's maybe more. These examples are maybe more, but at the same time, we also have Sabov still in the event, right? So another one of them, and I'm definitely just very pleased with this run. Not because I was screaming about it, offer to the forefront, but as I said, so many times we just see players not deliver in these opportunities, in these occasions. He actually did. I actually like his matchup against Tsitsipas. I just doubt
Okay.
he will play with enough tactical discipline. He is not the smartest player out there on the court, I would say. He very often just relies on the fact that he has like a powerful baseline game, a great serve as well. I don't really think the tactical awareness is really there, and that he's going to be like this disciplined.
Oh,
Do you
it's
remember?
Ghost being it's Ghost being nonsense. Ghost joking with
Yeah,
you.
maybe you
Ghost
were
joking
talking
with
about
you.
Peyton Stearns, but no, actually, Offner and Karatsev were the two qualifier picks that I was mentioning all the time. Of course, Karatsev didn't pan out. You
Well, I
can
was expecting Karatsev to
fully
pan out as well. I thought he'd beat Tiafoe. And I thought Karatsev would be playing Zverev tomorrow night, but clearly
Yeah,
that's not happening.
Karatsev was my pick for the quarters, so he even had to go a step further.
Ouch.
Unfortunately, I did not believe in Thiago Seyboth. I'm sorry. If he was playing anyone else but Medvedev and Alcaraz, I'm talking just about the 19 slots that the qualifiers were drawn into, so the 16 qualifiers and the 3 lucky losers. So, of course, if he was playing like Djokovic, someone else like Djokovic, I also wouldn't be picking him. But if he was playing anyone other than Alcaraz or Medvedev, including Casper Ruud, I would be picking Seyboth to also go far. But I just didn't trust him. I just lost my belief, and
Same.
I am really disappointed with myself. But at least Offner made it, so I'm excused, I think.
Okay. I want to touch on the Djokovic Davidovic Fokina match, but I think we should do that after we talk about Lorenzo Musetti, because the chat is talking about Lorenzo Musetti right now, and I think that, and Ashley's asking, is Lorenzo Musetti in really good form right now? And they're talking about it in the context of the matchup with Alcaraz that's going to happen, because Alcaraz won in the last ball on Philippe Chatrier. Musetti played a very, very good match against Cameron Norrie, just swept him away. It wasn't a particularly good match. I wasn't that engaged with it. I thought Norrie tried to fight back a bit in the third, but Musetti just was more clutch than him and held on. Yeah, and again, I'm a Brit. I should probably be talking about Norrie. I'm not a big Cameron Norrie fan, despite the apparent physical resemblance. Vant just told me that apparently I look like Cameron Norrie.
No way.
So I definitely was expecting Musetti to come through that. He's looking really, really good. And I think there's a lot of chat around the matchup with Alcaraz, who Shapovalov did not really challenge him apart from 5 games in that match. And then Alcaraz just in control the rest of the time. Shapovalov just didn't produce enough of a level. So I've just given you a summary of 2 matches there. I'm going to stop talking in a second. How do you see this panning out? Are you impressed with Musetti and how it's been going so far?
I'm just laughing about this comment. But anyway,
I am the most British man imaginable. Please let me fetch my top hat and monocle.
And I'm gonna shock you, Ghosty. Jack is also British. You're gonna be really concerned when you hear this. I suppose that for now, just until now, you didn't know why he was into Andy Murray so much. And
this is something else, Damien, as well from Vunch.
Roger Federer, I've never even heard it, but actually I kind of see it. And I've said it, I think, on these shows before, but like anyone who has similar facial hair can basically be assigned to myself. So anyway, we were talking about Musetti. Yes, absolutely. To push through Imer and Shevchenko and Norrie without dropping a set is pretty huge, especially when you're Lorenzo Musetti. You have such a weird, varied play style, and like usually you don't really know what to do on the court. And a lot of the time, the focus can be all over the place. This week, it's not really the case at all. It's very unnatural. It's very unusual for Musetti to not have any dips, and just having like good understanding of what he needs to do on the court. This is a really good sign, I think. It is a matchup that Alcaraz has struggled in before. In 2020, they played in a semifinal of a challenger in Trieste, which was one of my favorite matches of that year. Alcaraz ended up winning 6-3 in the third, of course, a long while ago. But the more relevant is, of course, the Hamburg final last year, which Musetti also won. At the time, quite a shock with Alcaraz perhaps losing a set, I think, to Nikola Kuhn in the opening round, but then like crushing Kachanov and someone else. And basically, everyone thought that was going to be just a routine victory for the Spaniard, who is just considered to be a much bigger talent. But I actually think if we're going to watch Alcaraz against Musetti over like the course of many matches, it could be that it's going to be another Alcaraz Sinner. Not to this extent, but it could be that their matches are actually always going to be more competitive. And I'm very excited to see it. I have my reservations because like even I've seen a lot of people. Yeah, Alcaraz won that challenger. That was, I think, over Ricardo Bonadio in the final. I think it was his first challenger title actually, and that was like July 2020 or something. Alcaraz won 6-3 in the third against Musetti, and then beat Bonadio. And I do have my reservations because even before today's match, I saw a lot of people thinking that Alcaraz could be troubled by Shapovalov. It was, when he was 5-love up, I was like fully ready to start checking triple bagel stats. Of course not, but it was really looking like this. Of course, Shapovalov ended up having an advantage in the second set when Alcaraz was just able maybe to just slow it down a little bit and allow him to hit himself off the court. Is Alcaraz Musetti going to be just similarly non-competitive? I don't think so. I think this will be the first serious test that Alcaraz has had, and perhaps he even kind of needs it, right? This is something that we might talk about in the in like 10 minutes when we're talking about Djokovic. But I think a match like this in a tournament can be really, really helpful for you, and Musetti should provide the challenge.
Yeah, I agree. If you look at most people who end up winning slams, they generally have that match in the tournament that really tests them, that means they unlock that level required to do it. And if that Musetti match does that for Alcaraz, then his chances of winning the French are going to go up for me. It is interesting that the matchups Alcaraz has with his fellow, with his peers, Sinner.
Vansh is in the chat. You might as well
Musetti.
say Farms.
I think it would be Arms because I'm not convinced about Felix right now.
Okay.
But
then again, Felix leads Alcaraz like 3-1, right?
That is true. Yeah. But
it's just indoor hard wins, but
it depends on whether you count them as the same generation or not. It's kind of borderline. I suppose you could count them as the same. Farms or Arms, whichever you want to call it, like Rune in there as well. And then Alcaraz and Rune haven't played yet, I don't think, outside of
who?
On the main tour. Alcaraz and Rune. I don't think they've played yet on the main tour.
They played, I think, Next Gen Finals, didn't they? And they also played.
I've never watched Next Gen Finals. I never remember those matches.
They played last year in Paris when Alcaraz retired in the second set tiebreak. Paris, not Roland Garros, but Paris-Bercy.
Okay, there you go. I was wrong. Oh yeah, because that was a weird match. I forgot about that.
Ghosty, you're right. They played Next Gen Finals in Paris. Yeah, these two matches exactly. And I think it will be a really close one. I actually kind of tend to think that even though right now most people look at Alcaraz Sinner as the potential rivalry of the future, I'm not sure if Alcaraz Rune will not be the trend-setting main thing out there. But
I think it will be as well.
It remains to be seen. I can understand both opinions for sure. I've always been a little, maybe not always. When he was breaking through the challengers, I was definitely higher in Sinner than most people. But I think since he became a top player, I was always a bit maybe less optimistic. The other way around, I suppose, with Rune. So I totally get that it could be just my bias.
Yeah. But it's going to be, I think, we're right to be excited for Alcaraz Musetti. Might end up being the night match on Châtrier on Sunday. We'll see what the schedule comes out, but I'm definitely looking forward to that one. It's nice to see Musetti's playing well. He's clearly very comfortable at Roland Garros. Interesting to see how that one goes over 5 sets as well, because that'll be the first time that they'll play on the extended format. That's a variable we can't consider. I would probably make Alcaraz the slight favorite in that scenario. That situation, the 5 sets benefiting Alcaraz more than a 3. But we'll have to see how it goes. Shall we? Now we've talked about that. Shall we talk about Djokovic, Davidovic, Fokina as your other pick for the most interesting match for the day in terms of the first 2 sets? Because for the first 2 sets, it was 7-6, 7-6. It took about 3 hours, and it was just brutal baseline rallies, all court, running all over the place. And yet I was watching it going, I wasn't necessarily gripped by the tennis. It's not the kind of tennis I prefer to watch stylistically, but I was very impressed by sort of the competitiveness of it. I think Davidovic Fokina was definitely unfortunate in some ways not to have got a set. I think he was playing well enough to do it, but Djokovic was being Djokovic and refusing to let anyone past him. And then at the end in the 3rd set, I think Fokina faded, but for the first 2 sets, he was on level. He was really pushing Djokovic. Yeah,
you guys actually don't have to cover your ears. Like, we're not going to be criticizing Davidovic Fokina today. That's not the day to do it. I remember just saying yesterday that I figured that it's probably going to be a very close and long match. Like, even if Djokovic wins it in 3 or 4, just because of the nature of the matchup, how many long rallies they're going to play. Indeed, Davidovic Fokina totally deserved the set today. He was just absolutely on par with Djokovic in the first 2 sets. I would even say he was better in the opening set. He had a set point right in the second at 5-6, maybe 6-5, I guess, from his perspective. And he just did. He was a bit too much of Davidovic Fokina-ing. There was a bit too much of Davidovic Fokina-ing, I would say that, in the tiebreakers. But then again, of course, it's Novak going into lockdown mode again and not hitting a single unforced error over the course of 2 tiebreakers, right? So what can you really do? Then again, of course, the shot selection from Davidovic Fokina wasn't great in the tiebreakers. Some of that is on Djokovic not making errors, of course, but some of that is actually also on him. He deserved the set, absolutely. He wins the opener. Who knows? Maybe he even wins the match, right? He was definitely the fresher player at the beginning. Novak was breathing heavily. He was not handling the wind well. In general, over the course of the match, like, he had no offense on the forehand side, really, which I think was related to the wind, possibly. And he totally had that set at least in him. What do you think about his constant drop shotting in the beginning? I know that he actually ended up losing that game where he was doing that, but like, just seeing how rough it was for Djokovic physically at that stage, even though it was like the 6th game of the match, I did not think he was doing that wrong. Like, I think he was actually introducing them at like a healthy amount. Of course, some of them were not executed perfectly. Some of them he lost the points on. But in general, I don't think he ever really went overboard with the droppers. And if he lost the game, it was mostly on, just a combination of aspects rather than just the fact that he played too many drop shots.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of varied reasons. I think obviously Davidovic Fokina has beaten Novak once before in Monte Carlo, but Novak was really off par. I think under normal conditions, I'm not sure that he's got the firepower to do it, but like, the variety he was deploying was really troubling Djokovic because he was struggling physically. You were right. He wasn't firing on all cylinders and he was moving Djokovic around. And I think we agree. Like, Davidovic Fokina played really, really well. It reminds me a lot of that Denis Shapovalov Wimbledon semi-final that Novak played a couple of years back, where Shapovalov probably should have won at least 1, if not 2 sets, and yet lost in straight sets. And I feel
that's what Novak does, right?
That's what
Like
Novak does.
that's just what he does.
And this is why he's one of the greatest players who ever played. He's just very, very difficult to break down. I just want to say this to Ghost. I agree with you. I prefer 5-setters definitely on grass. For sure. Clay, I enjoy the physical side of it, but I do also sometimes think, come on, hit a winner already.
Yeah, but like definitely no one has to cover their ears if they're a Davidovic Fokina fan. Today it's just praise. You know, he delivered on the promise. He delivered on the fact that we were expecting a tight battle. Even if it's 3 sets, it's going to be super long. That's exactly what happened. And yeah, just should have won. He's going to do better next time probably. He had his big chance, I think, today, really, to score a monumental upset. Because, of course, he's beaten Djokovic before, but it's just a completely different thing to do it in Monte Carlo best of 3 rather than at a slam. But yeah, this just wasn't really Grand Slam winning form from Djokovic. Maybe he could beat everyone in the event if like in this position. I think he could maybe beat most of the players in the event. I'm not sure he could beat Alcaraz, provided they actually play. However, if I was a Djokovic fan, I would probably be relying on the fact that, yeah, he played Davidovic Fokina, he had some issues, but this is a match that could make him stronger for the rest of the event. And that perhaps is something that, yeah, if I was a Djokovic fan, that's probably what I would be looking at as, yeah, just something to draw confidence from, that this match could really, really help him in the rest of the event. How long did they play? 3 hours, 36 minutes.
Wow. Yeah. And obviously 36 minutes of that was just the third set. So
yeah, more or less. Yeah.
So, and actually, well, look, Jane mentioned about Djokovic arranging his crystals for his next match. He will play Juan Pablo Varillas, who, as we mentioned live on the stream, beat Hubert Hurkacz in 5 sets. His third consecutive 5-set win of the tournament. Not looking good. Not the best physical preparation you need for a match with Novak Djokovic. I think Djokovic, even if he went 5 with Davidovic Fokina, would be the favourite for that one. But yeah, I'm not surprised Varillas beat Hurkacz, to be honest. He's looking kind of good on it. I did watch it a bit. He was, again, using all the court very well. We know about Hurkacz's weaknesses. Yeah, not surprised Varillas is at this stage at all, to be honest.
I mean, he had a pretty good opening in the draw for sure. Shank had mononucleosis recently, which, well, at least according to him, it was what did not allow him to maybe compete for 5 sets with him. Bautista Agut, also some physical issues. But, you know, Varillas is a guy who definitely, like, in terms of pure ball striking, he belongs up there. He belongs with all the main tour clay courters. I don't think his game in general is like that steady, and also maybe something that I said about Offner, where I'm not really sure that he has the tactical awareness to maybe compete with the very top guys. However, when today, like before that match against Hurkacz, I actually thought that the Pole would win because, well, Varillas, again, I just don't think he really has the tactical discipline to overcome the advantage of, you know, just getting so many 3 points on serve. However, when the 3 points on serve weren't really around for Hurkacz, mostly because of the night conditions, the fact that he also wasn't feeling the freshest, and neither was Varillas, of course. They were playing 5 sets both in their first 2 rounds, right? But when this advantage was not really around, Varillas just started dominating that match. You know, he off the ground, he's definitely the much better, well, player on clay at least. Maybe on grass and hard, Varillas doesn't really have any wins. I think on hard courts he still hasn't hasn't beaten a top 200 opponent. So I can't really say that he's the better player in terms of his ground game on hard courts than Hurkacz. But on clay, he actually is. And he was just fabulous today in terms of his ball striking. And yeah, just a guy who definitely belongs up there just in terms of their ability to, you know, just strike the ball cleanly. And I hope that he continues to produce results like this, because this year it was a little dry from him for sure. not counting that Buenos Aires semi. But let's also remember that this is a guy who like was on the verge of breaking the top 100 for years and only really did it last year. So it's not like he has any like it's not like he has so much ATP Tour experience. He is really just starting out basically. And yeah, Matthew is right that the 5-setters that Varillas had were much shorter than the ones that Hurkacz had. Still, Varillas was really struggling today as well. Maybe not necessarily at the end, but there were moments. He also had an MTO, and I would just say that both players weren't really the freshest. Hurkacz was probably the one that felt it more, and maybe not only the night conditions influenced his serve, but maybe also that leg injury that he also had attended. It was just a war, right? I mean, both guys had played 2 5-setters in a row. It had to be the war.
Yeah. Speaking of war, there was one other 5-set match and that happened today. And to be honest, it's probably the upset of the day. So it's somewhat surprised we probably haven't got to it yet. Maybe when you think about the two of us and our various interests in the chat, we're probably not surprised. But apologies to Andrei Rublev fans. He lost from 2 sets to love up against Lorenzo Sonego, who for the first time in his career came from 2 sets to love down to win a match in 5 sets. Reaches the commentator got this wrong, and I was very annoyed by it. They said it was the first time he'd ever made the 4th round of a major. That is completely wrong. He's made it at least twice, because he's made Wimbledon 4th round in 2021.
Oh, when he played Federer,
yeah. And I believe he also got to the Roland Garros 4th round in 2020.
You're right. Yeah.
So, but yeah, in terms of Rublev,
I frankly can't blame them, because like if you just randomly woke me up in the middle of the night and asked me if Lorenzo Sonego made the 2nd week of a slam, I would say no. But yeah, you're right. I mean, the Federer match, of course, I remember. And in 2020, apparently he lost to Schwartzman,
who was in very, very good form that year.
Yeah, I remember him beating Fritz in the 3rd round. Now that I think of it, but like, nah, just off the top of my head now.
But yeah, for that match, for the match today, I was surprised Rublev didn't win it because he looked like he was in control. I only caught the kind of the end of it, and there was some really good tennis being played. It was really intense. That 4th set tie break, only 1 point against the serve, and that was set point for Sonego. And only 1 break in the finals in the deciding set. It was a match of fine margins by the end between the two of them, and there were some good rallies. But I would have to say that based on the scoreline of how this match was going, I'm a little bit surprised Rublev let that one slip.
Yeah, I mean, most of us, I think, thought that this was going to be at least competitive. Then again, when Rublev was 7-5, 6-love up, you probably thought, okay, so that's over. That's actually not going to be competitive, or like, maybe Sonego gets a set, but that's the most he can do, really. Yeah, I don't know if it's really that impactful for the rest of the event, because I never really figured that Rublev was going to be a threat to Djokovic anyway if he got through Sonego and Khachanov. For Khachanov, of course, it's amazing. For Sonego as well, needless to say. If Davidovic Fokina beat Djokovic today, then we would be talking about like a very open quarter, right? But for now, of course, Djokovic like remains the main favorite just to clean it up there. So maybe in the end, it's not going to end up mattering that much. Rublev and Sinner, to me, before the event, were definitely the weakest of the top 8 seeds. So they're both being out early. Isn't really that much of a shock, I think. But of course, Medvedev was actually the first one out, and that was more. Even if he played such a dangerous opponent in the opening round, it was still quite something.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting that obviously we're talking about those names, and Rublev, based on Monte Carlo, should have had some momentum, but he lost it completely over the rest of the clay season. And it's funny, when I was doing my draw picks, I got to the 4th round and I had him playing Khachanov, and I had a brief moment of, I think Khachanov might win that if they play. And Khachanov did win today. He avoided a 5th set, narrowly having to come back in the 4th set tiebreak against Thanasi Kokkinakis. Because I had he went to behind at the tiebreak. I walked out the room to go and do something, came back in, and he'd won the match in what was sort of a very crazy match point, with both him and Kokkinakis almost being on the ground at the end of it. And yeah, but Khachanov into the Roland Garros fourth round for the 6th time in his career, I think, which is pretty impressive. Only made the quarters once, but I'd say he's now probably favourite to make quarters again against Sonego. He's. I think Khachanov is someone who always gets overlooked when we look at draws, and then we're like, oh yeah, in the second he gets the second week, and he's like, oh yeah, he's still here. Oh yeah, he's got a chance of going deep. Maybe it's because we don't see he doesn't have the game to beat the top guys. I don't see him beating Djokovic in the quarters. Definitely wouldn't see him beating Alcaraz. But we need to stop sleeping on him getting to like quarterfinals.
Yeah, I'm not sure many were sleeping on him here. Like Khachanov, Rublev, they've played twice this clay season. 50-50 match if they meet. I think that's how a lot of people saw it. And they were likely to meet because it seemed like they have pretty good draws. I probably thought that maybe Humbert was going to be more dangerous to Rublev than Sonego. Of course, Sonego ended up beating Humbert. But yeah, I think what you said about Khachanov, just if he gets to these semis, it still doesn't feel like he can actually win the event. And that's why we don't really look at him as one of the major contenders. We tend to look at guys who just potentially, if they actually make the semis, you start thinking they can actually win the event. And Khachanov at the US Open, did it really feel like that? No. What he was the fourth guy in the in succession or whatever, and the same at the Australian Open, right? So, maybe Tommy Paul would have been the fourth, of course, at the Australian Open, but like at the Australian Open, anyone was looking just at Djokovic and Tsitsipas. At US Open, probably you would have to expand it, like after Alcaraz, you would have Ruud and Tiafoe, I suppose, and then Khachanov. So yeah, I think that's really the reason for it. Of course, it is a very impressive feat to make as the 2 consecutive slam semis, as you said. I mean, 6 times in a Roland Garros second week. That is pretty crazy because he only played the main draw 7 times. The only time he lost in the second round was against Kei Nishikori in 2021. So also
not a bad loss.
Exactly. I mean, the only bad loss he had was in 2016 in the qualifying to Jordi Samper Montana. So I think we can forget about that. And basically, since he's been playing the main draw, he has only lost to Nishikori before the second week, which is an excellent feat. And yeah, anytime the guy plays an event, he seems like he wins just 2 matches, 3 matches, 4 matches. He never really wins these events, but he actually goes deep basically everywhere, and that is very impressive. But that's also why he isn't mentioned, as one of the like trendy peaks ahead of slams, because no one thinks that he can actually win the event, even though he has an ATP 1000 title to his name.
Yeah, which I think kind of relied on Djokovic having a bad day for that one.
I think Khachanov has this ability to, like, against the top player, to come out and just blast the ball and don't really care. And sometimes this can really lead to on an individual day an extremely high peak level. I think usually though he doesn't really play like that. When he had that match against Alcaraz in Madrid, he was 5-2 up in the second, right? And that was pretty similar. I think that was in some parts that was the level that he brought to Paris in 2018. So I would say he actually like feels like an ATP 1000 winner to me, like at least once. Yep. But most of the time he is more reliant on his physicality, consistency, which is great. I mean, it's getting him to some extreme heights, right? I mean, as I said, the guy made 2 consecutive slam semis. I just feel like it's not necessarily the tennis that won him that ATP 1000, and maybe not something that is giving him like the highest possible upside. But on clay, he is definitely amazing as well. It gives him so much more time to produce that extreme forehand grip. And An amazing really stat line that in 7 Roland Garros attempts he made the second week 6 times. I mean, I'm pretty sure we would have to check that, like, of course we don't really have it in our heads just ready to go, but I'm pretty sure there are a lot more players whom we like consider stronger than Khachanov who are actually like they wouldn't have a record like that at any slam.
No. No. Apart from maybe the ultimate best, but we'd have to like really dig into that. I'm pretty sure Rafael Nadal has only failed to make the second week of Roland Garros once in his career, and that was due to injury in 2016. But Nadal is like the special case. So I think I completely agree with you there. I think Khachanov is. Look, Roland Khachanov. That would be like 3 consecutive major quarterfinals if he beats Sonego. Surely we've got to be talking about him as being in contention for top 10. He's
11, right?
Yeah, he's got to be breaking top 10, surely.
He was already in the top 10 in like 2018, right?
Yes, after winning that Masters, yeah.
But yeah, I mean, he's 11th, actually even 10th in the live rankings. So
he's already 10th in live rankings, okay, yeah.
Yeah, he might actually get there just after the French. So very close to that. Let me just look briefly. Yeah, it's like Tiafoe just behind him, but Tiafoe would need to win 2 matches. Coric, Musetti, they could like get ahead of him with a title or a final, so unlikely. Yeah, he is very likely actually to be in the top 10 soon. And as far as I remember, he was also very high in the ATP race. 9. So if he keeps it up, there's even like potential to fight for a touring spot this year. So
yeah, I definitely think so. And like, well, let's see how the rest of the year goes, because obviously some of that's based on that US Open from last year and sort of how well he's going to defend those points. I guess there's only one match left we haven't really discussed. We kind of touched on it earlier because we kind of mentioned that Tsitsipas made it through. Because I think it was when we were discussing Offner. It's funny that like we talked about sort of the all unseeded match first, but that does not surprise me. Tsitsipas, I don't think it's much worth talking about. Schwartzman did not challenge Tsitsipas whatsoever. Tsitsipas just executed everything he needed to. He went on a brilliant run sort of midway through the match of pretty much winning almost every point. He was very much the better player in that match, and he definitely deserved his place in round 4 to play Offner. Is Tsitsipas looking better than we were expecting? Not necessarily saying in terms of like winning the thing, but in terms of general form for him, is he looking better than we were expecting?
It's kind of hard to like gauge it, I think, because, well, he played a couple of different play styles. He played Vesely, who was, of course, so much different to Schwartzman and Carballes Baena, right?
Okay, yeah.
And I think we haven't really learned that much from the matches against Carballes Baena and Schwartzman, because right now they seem to be at like a very similar state where they just leave Tsitsipas with too much freedom. Even if Tsitsipas would lose his mind for a while, or I don't know, just throw out a bunch of forehands and go down a set, go down a break, he still has so much time to recover from this. And they just don't put much pressure on him, which is kind of sad, I guess, if you're, commiserations to Jeffro, if you're a Schwartzman fan, because that's not what you're expecting from the guy, right? You're expecting that from the baseline, he's actually going to produce any sort of threat. But yeah, yesterday I remember having this sort of take on the Last Ball show where I said that like Carballes Baena against Tsitsipas, I think it's literally the same Schwartzman against Tsitsipas right now. And I think that's how it looked. And these matches don't really tell us much ahead of whatever Tsitsipas is going to have to face later. I'm not talking about Offner, but I think Offner is slightly just, of course, he's like so much more aggressive. I think stylistically he is tougher for Tsitsipas. Again, I don't think he can really produce it over the course of 3 sets. But I don't think matches like Schwartzman, Carballes Baena, they really prepared Tsitsipas for what is to come, for playing Alcaraz, for playing Djokovic. So I find it really hard right now to estimate where exactly he is. Probably where he was in the clay season. So like okay, one of the best players, but do you really think he's going to beat, I don't know, Alcaraz and Rune? Well, he would actually have to play Alcaraz, Djokovic, and then someone in the final, probably. Yeah, that's still, we haven't seen anything that would suggest that it's possible, because before the event it didn't really seem to be. Ghibli, I would have to check this year, but even last year when Schwartzman had this terrible year, he was still on top of most of the return stats, which was just so surprising to me. But I guess this would be, it would probably be different this year, just because his win-loss record is like what? 7 and 17, right? So this year is probably not as great for him in the return leaderboards. But I remember even last year, with the terrible year that he had, he was still at the top of the return leaderboards, which definitely surprised me. Probably right now it wouldn't really be like this anymore.
Expect to see Diego Schwartzman in the Challenger events for the rest of the year, I expect. I think that's what's probably what's going to be happening. Going back to Tsitsipas, I think that's a good point. Maybe he's faced some opponents who haven't retested him, so that's probably not going to help him.
Yeah, just to because I don't want to miss it. Like when you get to the ATP Tour like stats on the ATP website, when you choose 2022 in terms of return, Schwartzman has the highest score, and then it's Nadal, Djokovic, Zapata, Miralles apparently, which is kind of wild. But I cannot choose 2023, it's not an option, but we can choose 52 weeks. So it would be just from June 2022 to June right now. And well, Schwartzman is not really anywhere to be found, 25th. So, that kind of tells you that, well, right now he's doing that poorly that even his return stats started being much worse.
Yeah. Okay, so that's an interesting point with Schwartzman's return.
So I think that the stats actually back you up, Ghibli. That basically in the past 52 weeks he has dropped off since that level. But if you just chose 2022, where he was already not doing that well, right? He was still top of the leaderboards. But right now it seems like he has fallen off a cliff, and this is just June to June, right? So I think the stats actually do back you up. That especially in the past 5-6 months or so, it has worsened.
Yeah. Well, clearly Tsitsipas probably isn't going to get tested until he gets to Alcaraz. That's not going to help him. Assuming it is Alcaraz, Musetti might be a better matchup for him if Musetti somehow pulls off the upset. But I would probably agree then that it would be Djokovic in semi-finals. He's not winning that matchup. If Djokovic somehow has some kind of physical issue, unless Djokovic has a physical issue, in which case then Tsitsipas would probably be the favorite, like either pretty even with Rune in a final or Casper Ruud. But that's a long shot scenario. There's a lot of different things that would need to happen. So yeah, maybe Tsitsipas not in as good a shape as maybe it suggests. Max is mentioning Thiago Seyboth-Wild, which probably maybe should bring us on to what's happening tomorrow.
Yeah, we'll just say that for me, it's not that Tsitsipas, I think he's like not playing well or something. I just feel like he has such terrible records against most of his peers, and well, the guys he would need to beat to win here. He has played Rune twice, lost to him both times. I think in like a year or two, he's actually not going to be not going to come close to beating Rune, I think, in a year or two. Maybe this year, if they played, it would still be fairly close. He has a pretty, against Medvedev, he has a decent record. Of course, Medvedev is not in the event, but he has a pretty decent record. But even, recently lost to him on clay, right? His favorite surface against his worst. Alcaraz, he hasn't beaten him. Djokovic, of course, he has he was leading him 2-1, I think, in the head-to-head, and then since he hasn't beaten him.
Yeah.
It's really looking quite dire, I think, from that perspective. That's why I don't think he can win this event if he needs to play 2 of these guys in a row, or 3 of them in a row, as the draw is panned out. It's not necessarily a reflection of his form. It's just that he is, both that doesn't match up well with them, but that's mostly, I guess, because he's just weaker. I'm sorry.
I think the reality is that his game does not match up well with the guys who have risen to the top of the ATP. Alcaraz, Djokovic, it won't match up well
Yeah,
to
but
Rune,
why doesn't it match up
Medvedev.
well? Because it's just weaker, right? Because it has like a liability, a very open liability,
Which is the
or a
backhand.
few, of them, yeah, or a few of them, even with return of serve, with the fact that he doesn't have a slice really. I mean, he has one, but it's clunky. It's not effective. So while theirs actually don't really have things like that. So yeah, I was discussing this. Maybe that's why. I want to say something more about this, but I was actually discussing this with someone today and just thinking that it feels super weird to say that because Tsitsipas was just in the Australian Open final. But you kind of have to wonder whether he actually still has a slam for himself somewhere, because he was always going to have the best chance at the French. And right now, do you really think, like, in a couple of years, is he going to trouble Alcaraz, Rune? Sinner maybe even? It's rough. And on hard courts, I guess it would be maybe even easier now. But if Medvedev isn't like full flight, you're not gonna like his chances either. Of course, provided Djokovic isn't there anymore. So yeah, it's looking quite dire from that perspective. But it doesn't mean that he hasn't been playing well. He has. It's just that if he has to play Alcaraz and Djokovic back to back, no one would like his chances.
I completely agree. And I think he has been hurt a little bit by the era he's in, with the top guys going on so long in their careers. In previous years, maybe Federer and Nadal would have been done after 2016 and Djokovic would have been done after that elbow injury in 2017. In that parallel universe, Tsitsipas would probably have 2, maybe 3 slams.
Roland Garros.
Until Alcaraz showed up.
Australian Open this year, he was clearly the best player outside of Djokovic.
Yeah, he definitely would have won at least one, probably a couple of Roland Garroses and maybe one Australian Open.
Yeah, but I guess that's why it was really pretty key for him, right? To either, of course, win that Roland Garros where he was 2-1 up on Djokovic, or sorry, 2 sets to love up even on Djokovic, or the Australian Open, because 2 things were like aligned for him, right? Medvedev was out of form, which right now is far from true. And the other thing was that Alcaraz didn't play the Australian Open. So that's why he was like the clear second best outside of Djokovic. But unfortunately for him, only the clear second best. But yeah, we can definitely move on to what's tomorrow.
What's happening tomorrow? Yeah, we've got ourselves a good lineup. We've already mentioned some matches that we're excited about. I've definitely seen some in the chat. I've forgotten how we tend to do next day previews on this. Do we just literally pick matches we like the look of, or is it?
We can do it like this.
structured?
Yeah, I mean, there's not really, there's not a formula here. Like yesterday with John, we were doing it a lot more, just bouncing between topics, sort of, for example. So like, there's no formula that we follow. Even though I've been on, I think, all but one. Every single episode can have a very different formula to it. So yeah, just whatever you want, really.
Yeah. Just to answer Max's question, Damien is. I am not.
Yeah, apparently I'm on the whole Talking Tennis team. I am the one who needs to get a life the most. So that's why I'm also on the last ball drops tomorrow. With whom I'm not sure yet. Maybe if there's no one there,
I have it here, but I have it here, but it's a maybe, not a definitely confirmed. Which is why.
So who was that?
Okay, so at the minute it might be Vanch.
Okay, maybe Vanch it was okay. I forgot about the fact that he was that in that spot. Yeah, so maybe me with Vanch or me with we'll see who. But yeah, it will be there for you anyway. That's you don't have to worry about that. And anyway, before we actually leave and then see you tomorrow, we still have to talk about what's actually tomorrow. So maybe we can just do it in that way, which you suggested. Yeah. So like, just what excites you tomorrow, Nick?
Well, look, looking at this, first of all, do not be surprised. WTA is going to feature very heavily. The obvious one is, I think the obvious one is Andreeva Goff, because obviously they're the headline of the 2 teenage sensations. and let's see if Andreeva at 16 and the first time playing her can expose that Goff forehand weakness. She definitely, I think they're both going to play with a lot of fight. It's going to be a lot of intensity. That could go 3 sets. That could be very, very exciting. I'm here for it. Rybakina, Sorribes Tormo. Can Sorribes Tormo diffuse the Rybakina power? I'm not fully convinced. Some people are. But in terms of a contrasting matchup, that interests me. I'm interested to see how many games Iga Swiatek drops against Wong. Is it going to be? Are there going to be bakery products in there? And then from the men's side, I think, okay, I'm going to say the most interesting men's match is Zverev Tiafoe, which is the night match on Chatrier. I'm also interested to see how Zhang does against Rude. That one, I think, has a little bit of an upset written on it. Not sure about you.
I kind of agree with you. I just don't know if it's possible on like slow clay. I will have to agree probably with Ghibli that Cerundolo Fritz is the best match on the men's side.
I forgot about that. Yes.
However, I'm not really sure if I'm gonna watch it.
Okay.
Zhang Rude is something that I'm definitely tuning into. I think I was already mentioned. I already mentioned that yesterday, but at the US Open 2022. I was dead certain that Zhizhen Zhang was going to beat Casper Ruud in the second round. He, however, blew 7 match points in the opening round against Tim van Rijthoven, and that match never came to be. Zhizhen Zhang was like in immaculate form back then. Right now, he's not. And it's also clay, where I'm not really sure Zhizhen Zhang is that much weaker on slower clay than he was at the courts at the US Open, but there's a big difference in comfort level between Casper Ruud there and here. So that's why I have my doubts, but I am super excited to see how this one actually goes. I would love to see Echeverry have a good showing against Coric, probably beat him. I think he is the favorite there, and it would be just like yet another amazing step for him. Something that he clearly, out of their like slow clay skill sets, I am definitely more impressed with the one of Echeverry rather than Coric. On the men's side, just like similarly with Zverev Tiafoe, Cerundolo Fritz, I know these will be probably like tight matches. I might watch them, but it's not something that it's really that is on my schedule, and like whatever happens, I'm not gonna miss them. These matchups have already gotten sort of too main tour-ish for me. Like they have gotten pretty boring for me, I would say. And otherwise, on the women's side, definitely agree with most of your picks. I actually have a feeling in my gut that Rybakina is just going to crash Sorribes Tormo. I don't really buy into Sorribes Tormo, especially this early in her comeback, being able to survive against Rybakina, but we'll see. Andreeva Goff, of course, that's the big one. I fully expect the 16-year-old to actually win this one. I think she has a wonderful skill set to target that Goff forehand, and she is just much more complete, which feels weird to say. Then again, you always kind of have to wonder, it's still so early for her, right? This year, she has only lost the Australian Open Juniors final. She only lost to Sabalenka in Madrid, which is fine, and also lost to Kamilla Rakhimova a couple of weeks back. There are some concerns, but of course, so far in this event, she has been absolutely spot on. And maybe this is also an example of a player who, because she fought through her issues, not even her issues, it was just an excellent match, but because she had a tough one against Osorio in the final qualifying round, I think maybe this will also help her should any difficulty arise here.
Yeah.
And Swiatek Wang, I'm not even sure if I want to see it. Like, it's going to be similar to Swiatek's previous matches, probably. She has, like, on clay at least, she is in that sort of position where I kind of I kind of don't enjoy her early rounds anymore, because it's just so clear that what's going to happen. But of course, if their scoreline is closed, then that's something that everyone will be tuning into. I am also really excited to see how many games Danilovic can get off Jabeur, and if she can win that match, because of course she's on an unbelievable hot streak. It's just that this is a big step up in quality. That's probably what I'm most excited tomorrow. And
Ghibli's got a controversial view. Ghibli's got a controversial one. Dimitrov Otmar has Otmar written all over it. Interesting take.
Ooh, really? I mean, after Altmaier played for 5 hours, and just given the fact that it's so hard to repeat the best match of your life in the next round. Kayla Day, Schmidlova, yeah, that looks like one of the driest matches tomorrow, frankly, to me. I don't think it really matters that much also who is going to win it, because at the end, one of them is going to play Goff or Andreeva in the next round, and I just can't really see it being any close. I guess on the men's side, that the driest matches would be Jari Giron, provided that like nothing is going
Yeah.
to be happening there. I think in a way Jari also played Tommy Paul just now, and maybe he's not perfect on slow clay. The Chilean, he was much more dangerous to me in Santiago and Geneva, I think. But like he already played Tommy Paul, and Tommy Paul, in the sense of this matchup, I think is like an upgraded version of Marcos Giron. And also Runa Olivieri. I mean, no one is gonna watch that, and Runa is gonna win it in free. And yeah,
Yeah.
I'm also probably not planning to watch Nishioka Saipov just because I think the Brazilians should be pushing through there also quite. Well, I don't know if 3 sets, but he just played Guido Pella. I think it's also gonna help him just prepare for a lefty. And he really should be taking this one against Nishioka, who's quite poor on clay. And he would also, I think, prove a lot of people wrong. Like after the Saipov Medvedev upset, I saw a lot of people who are upset about this. Well, upset about that was not an intended pun, but just displeased with the result, because when someone who's let's say lower ranked beats Top Gun at the Slam, then usually they lose in the next round, right? And I would really like him to just prove them wrong and get far. And of course, he has the game to do it. And at this point, you cannot really exclude him even being in like the semifinals or something, just because of how this draw looks at this stage.
It's all definitely going a bit crazy in the last quarter. I'm having a look and seeing how I'm going to plan my day. I mean, I am out all morning tomorrow, but I'm hopefully going to get back in time. But yeah, if I had an opportunity to watch all the tennis, I think I'd be starting with Rybakina versus Sorribes Tormo. If that was getting one-sided, I would swing to Zhang versus Rude and see. Actually, no, Zhang versus Rude starts first, so I'd probably watch that for a bit and then see how that was going, and maybe switch to Rybakina versus Sorribes Tormo if it was going one direction. Then I'd be watching Andreeva Goff. And then I'd probably be, I think, as a Swiatek fan, I'll be watching Swiatek Wong. And I'll probably be checking out Cerundolo Fritz whilst waiting for Zverev Tiafoe to start. And then kind of spoiled for choice in the evening, because Zverev Tiafoe, Danilovic Jabeur, and Altmaier Dimitrov all could be very interesting. Or if you want to throw some doubles in there, Azarenka Haddad-Maia against Goff Pegula as like the last match on court 14. That's a big name doubles match, which I highlighted last time it was on the show. A repeat of the Madrid final. So we're kind of spoiled for choice when it comes to your Saturday evening or Saturday afternoon, depending on what time zone you're in. What time zone you're in. There. But yeah, that's probably how I would schedule my tennis watching day. So yeah, could be. I think we're in for a good one tomorrow. Overall, I think. Look, judging by how everything has gone so far, there's at least going to be one headline, one memeable moment, and a 5-setter most likely, because that's what's happening in the men's draw right now.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of 5-setters as basically every single day. What is there anything that has like 5 sets written all over it? Maybe Cerundolo Fritz, right? Zverev Tiafoe. Does that have it? Maybe
I'd say
Choric
those
Etcheverry.
Yeah, I'd agree. Those three are the most likely. Zhang Rude. Yes.
I mean, I would be disappointed if the Chinese doesn't take a set there. But the fact that I would be disappointed doesn't mean anything, right? I mean, that's not really something that's relevant here. And, I would be disappointed personally. But do I think it's really not a possibility? Hopefully. And yeah, Ghosty, you cannot really bring the Peyton Stearns argument anymore, because if you remember yesterday, I said that she has a very nice chance against Kasatkina. I thought so. We lost there. We lost there tomorrow. Today we lost. As a group, we both lost something at the beginning of the day at the French. You lost one of your favorites, and I lost my pride and my honor and my reputation. So
I'm sure you gained it back when Offner beat Fognini.
Maybe. I think I already had it. That was already a win when he made the third round. I think because like everyone looking at the draw was probably thinking he would play Felix, right? So.
I mean,
if it was Offner Fonini in the opening round, lots of people would be picking Offner. So,
I mean, I predicted Fonini to beat Felix, so I don't know what everyone else was talking about.
No, I mean, it was not like just looking at the draw, you wouldn't say, "Oh, it looks like an Offner Fonini round 3," right? Like,
yeah.
if you had it, it's very possible that you would have had it in the third round. Like that's not something that was really unseen or something, but definitely it wasn't like just this crystal clear that this would be the match that was happening in the third round. So I think the win with Offner was already a bit earlier. So yeah, basically I haven't really had any chance to recover.
I'm going to say this now. I'm not going to pretend I predicted Fonini to get to round 3. I predicted him to get to beat Felix and then crash out in round 2 to whoever he played. Because I didn't think he was going to be stayed that. Yes, exactly. Yeah, that would have been I was basically expecting a qualifier or lucky loser in round 4 from that section of the draw.
Avanesian made it. I don't know if it's that section of the women's draw, but it is somewhere around that, right? But not that it really matters. Anyway, I guess that's gonna be it, right?
Yeah, I think we should wrap it up there.
Yeah,
it's been a lot
that's
of fun.
Probably the longest last ball drops show that we've had so far. Hopefully, you guys enjoyed it.
We insist on reviewing every match and got on a few tangents, and it's always nice talking tennis with you, Damien, and with everyone in the chat.
Absolutely, I second that, and as I always say, it wouldn't be this fun without you guys. So. Yeah, and especially Ghosty, who's like really on fire today with comments that make me laugh. So,
sure. I'm saying nothing. I literally have nothing to say at this point.
Yeah, that's a good moment to end the show. John was saying that we should probably give you some outro, and I will try that. I think.
Yeah, I'm finding it now for you.
Oh, you have it.
Is
it just the 14-second one, or?
That was the one I was going to go with, and that's John.
Okay. Yeah, let's just go with that. Yeah.
Technical difficulties, please stand by. Well, thank you everyone for being absolutely wonderful as always. Damien, you'll be back tomorrow with Vanch, hopefully, or someone to talk to anyway, and we will. And I'll be back for last ball drops at some point, kind of in the next few days. Sort of midweek, and we've definitely got lots of great plans. Keep an eye out for any live streams where we will do some commentary. But yeah, it's been lovely speaking with you all. Hope you enjoyed today, and hope you're excited for tomorrow. Take care.
If you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell so you don't miss out on all things tennis.